Welcome to another edition of Sticks and Stones. I do go by the name of the Loose Cannon. Across from me, as always, Kenny Locke, a.k.a. my homeboy Sticks. What's poppin', Ken?
Yeah, what's poppin'? Sticks in the building. So, finalizing the laughter of Caucasian kids overdosing on oxys. I'm sorry. You guys had no empathy when we were addicted to crack, and you were locking up the drug dealers and locking up the crackheads and locking up their families and making the homes and the communities destroyed. You had no empathy for that. So
my baby Kelly, oh my gosh, she overdosed. She got into my Oxycontin. Now it's sad. Now America opens their eyes and sees there's an addiction, huh? That's all it took.
We're supposed to care.
That's all it took was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed angel that was probably sucking dick for 2 pills every other night.
Damn.
But now it's a shame.
Now it's a problem. Now,
do they still find a way to crucify the black man after all of this?
Nah, you know why? Because these Caucasian kids are starting to look like zombies out there. You know, they're looking like The Walking Dead.
Edward and fucking Bella and the rest of the fucking I know the movie. I had to watch that fucking movie on a date once. Ken, don't laugh, Twilight.
Yeah.
Please don't judge me, people.
Yeah. So so it's easy to spot them. You know, it's easy to spot the heroin users. You know, they're looking like they lost 50 pounds. They're looking gray. They're not the clear ones. They're the gray ones. Don't confuse the two at all. But, so the war on drugs has taken a crazy turn. White kids are now, having a huge oxy problem with, I think there's a lot of rehabs in Florida. I have some white friends that have gone to Florida.
Me as well.
Look, Florida is the spot, for rehab. But anyway, a lot of blacks, we fell into the trap.
Where would blacks go for their rehabs?
Jail. You call it jail. It's definitely a mentally degrading place. It's ultimate rehab.
Not as nice as Florida, I'm guessing.
Not as nice as Florida. You don't go there for 6 months and then you just, can't make phone calls on the weekends or something, or not at all, or whatever the case may be. In jail, there's a possibility of you getting butt fucked, and that's pretty dangerous, especially when they hold you down by,
I'm pretty sure some of that goes on in Florida as well.
Voluntarily. It's a lot of undercover
races. Undercover races? Oh, I'm sorry. Every time we think undercover, that's what comes to mind.
Yeah. Well, subconscious racism, undercover racism, literally undercover with the KKK, covering themselves undercover, but subconscious racism is really what we're talking about. But yeah, that's really what it is. Blacks, we need to stop making it obvious. Number one, I think if you're selling drugs right now, you're doing something wrong. Because with all the technology that's out there, you're a fool if you're going to be communicating any type of drug transactions with any type of device. So
PayPal and shit, like your PayPal and your fucking weed man nowadays.
Yeah. If you're watching, if you're selling drugs right now and you think you're being successful, you got another thing coming. There's the show, the hit show Power is just a show. There's I'm sure there's ghosts out there. I'm sure there's Lobos out there, but let me tell you guys something. You wouldn't know the story. We'll never know the story. And the only people that know the story
are the clear ones.
And the pickers.
No, I was right. Was I right? That just sounded like the right moment. I kind of lost the story, be honest with you. I was pouring myself a drink. But it was like a dun-dun-dun, and I had to deal with it.
Dude, you know about the clear ones. That's dope.
So what we are speaking on, once again, is the war on drugs, right? Now, this is not to say this is a topic that may be going on in your mind for a very long time, but you seen a video recently over the internet. Ron Paul and Rand Paul.
Yeah, I just saw this video. and these two white dudes, they stood up for black guys.
That's all they are to you is just two white dudes that stood up for black dudes.
Well, at the end of the day, I'm all about the bottom line. And the bottom line is, I can go into giving them, full props. It's Ron and Rand Paul. They explained the real reason for the NFL protests, So, and pretty much is, ending the war on drugs. You guys can actually look that up as well. Very powerful information that these dudes were saying in front of all of these white folks, in Congress. That takes some balls to say something like that in front of all of these racist white people that know that you're telling the truth, and they're looking at you like, shut the fuck up. Like, yo, what the hell are you doing? Yo, you're going to let black people get equal rights. Are you fucking crazy? Are you fucking shitting me? You know how much money you have in the fucking bank?
You think in Congress, like in the background, like you hear them white people just cracking jokes and not shutting the fuck up during the Congress speeches? Like when you go to movie theaters? Like, when you go to movie theaters and you hear people in the background? You think those white people in Congress are the same way?
Absolutely, dude. White people have a great sense of humor. And you gotta love them. I gotta mention this. I know I talk bad about a lot of white people, but I must say that if it weren't for them, we wouldn't discover shit, because white people are nosy as fuck. You know what I'm saying? And if it was just down to minorities, blacks and Spanish people, we wouldn't really invent a lot of shit. We'd be by the water. We'd be catching all kinds of fish. Mm-hmm. We would know about dangerous shit like sharks and maybe lions or something. But would we ever get to like the moon or flying a plane? Hell fucking no. We maybe hang glide. You know what I mean? I could see us doing some smooth hang gliding, getting from town to town. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Skiing? How about skiing? Ice skating, possibly?
Black people ice skating? Speaking of which, there's this new Idris Elba movie. I don't know if you've seen the commercial. You know who Idris Elba is?
No.
The black dude that was the superhero. He was also the
Black Panther?
No, he was the black superhero that was popular. Idris Elba. Come on, bro.
The black superhero Blank Man?
Dude, I'm gonna give you a couple of seconds to figure this, to try and remember.
Give me a better hint than that. A black superhero, nothing comes to mind.
Do you know who Idris Elba
No.
is? Okay,
but I know my superheroes.
He's a popular black guy that has like a English accent.
I said the Black Panther. I think I'm correct. That's who it was, from the comic books, that the movie's coming out recently. Or pretty soon, I mean.
The Black Panther. No, yeah. I know he was...
He was in the latest Marvels, Civil War that came out.
Yeah, he was he had this Dark Tower movie, that was out there. He was he was in a couple of movies, man. Like I don't know. But the reason why I brought him
you sound like a good supporter. He was in a couple of movies.
I at least know who the brother is, man. Damn. I at least know who Idris Elba is. He has a European accent. He's a black guy that a lot of black girls like.
When you say black guy, European accent, I think of Seal right away.
Yo, come on.
That's who comes in.
Of course.
Kissed by a rose.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cannon, as you can tell, has been raised on the East Coast. He's faded.
We are faded, and we were talking about the war on drugs. So you're a believer in the war on drugs. So if this war on drugs is complete and it goes as planned and it's a storybook ending, now no more blacks or Latinos or innocent people or minorities or whatever, none of them go to jail no more, but Sticks, a.k.a. Kenny Lock, can no longer smoke marijuana because all of his dealers are on lockdown and shutdown because the war on drugs has finally won. Are you satisfied?
Well, dude, let me tell you something, man. If that ever happened, I'm definitely moving to Colorado. No.
War on drugs being in the United States of America.
So,
period.
So what do you mean? I mean, but
no more drugs being transported for medical reasons.
Marijuana is not a drug, first and foremost.
To the
We're talking about cocaine.
To the piggers, it's considered drugs. So the war on drugs is going to be everything except for alcohol.
there will always be marijuana. Listen to the clear ones.
So the war on drugs got nothing to do with any type of marijuana.
No, the war on drugs. How can look? God made the universe in such a unique way. How can you stop a drug that you could plant and it could keep fucking growing, dude? It just keeps growing. It's infinite. Cocaine has to be made. It has to be imported. It can be grown too, but then it has to be made and it has to be shipped from one location to the next because you can't grow it in the United States because of the leaves that are done in Colombia or whatever the case may be. And you have to look at those farms, and obviously they can regulate that and spot them from a mile away, right?
Never knew all of that.
Yeah. So now cocaine, from a manufacturer standpoint, cannot be done so easily in the United States. So it's easier to track because they see where it's imported, they see where it can go, and they can see where they can trace it. Marijuana, on the other hand, if you got a couple seeds, you could grow a fucking farm in your backyard. Make sense? So it's going to be hard to ever stop.
Makes a lot of sense. What it sounds like is that you're totally against the coke heads, but you're for the weed heads.
No, I love them both. But at the same time, I hate the piggers. You know, I hate the fucking piggers. You know? You know, I think that marijuana is something that is medicine and cocaine is an actual drug.
But the whole point is marijuana is a way for the piggers to use the odor to get back to people like us and lock people the fuck up, or the whole reason why we're speaking of it, possibly kill them.
And that's the war on drugs, ladies and gentlemen.
So what does that have to do with Colin Kaepernick? Was he on fucking steroids, are you trying to say? How do you relate Colin Kaepernick and
war on
drugs?
Because what makes a pigger shoot an unarmed black person is because they're just trying to get an easy ticket. They're pulling somebody over for an illegal turn, not switching lanes without turning their lights on so that they can search their car and then do some other stuff to get some other brownie points so they can feel like they're, you know, I don't know, what's a good cop? I don't know, a good cop's a good pigger. What's a good pigger?
Chip, like from the show Chip.
Matumbo, not Matumbo. What's the other? Columbo. You can feel like fucking Columbo. You know?
But only because you brought it up, the subject, the topic, I've made illegal U-turns. Actually, in Long Island, I made I believe there's a right at a light by accident because I do live in Pennsylvania. I do a lot of driving in New Jersey. We can turn at a red light. Did it in Long Island, but it wasn't too obvious or whatever. The cop was far. Guy came, made a U-turn, pulled me over. I had all my paper ready. He questioned me. He looked at me. He looked in my car. I showed no sign of being high, no sign of being hostile, no smell of marijuana, and I got off scotch-free. That's not always the case for all minorities that get pulled over, because I have family, friends, minorities that are stupid enough to drive around with a Philly wrapper on the fucking floor or something like that. Or possibly even Visine on the front seat. The cop's not stupid. The cop right away, I believe, sees money. He doesn't see if the driver's black, white, fucking Chinese, Spanish, or whatever the fuck it is. I think now he knows he got a case for his job to make them money, which also promotes him in some type of way. So who does that fall back on? I think that falls back on the individual that's stupid enough to drive around listening to fucking Mobb Deep, which was myself when I was in my fucking teens, smoking weed, and you have the aroma of marijuana. How do you go and just blame the police officer for that?
Yeah. I mean, you're bringing up a specific scenario, and I respect the fact that you're giving it from your perspective. You know, which is all you can do. Absolutely.
It's an example of what I've been through, what I've done.
Yeah, exactly. And that example is even a safe example from the standpoint, because I, was a teenager in a suburban area, predominantly white area, smoking weed in the car and doing and chilling. And I didn't feel like, that threatened. I mean, it was very scary because I knew if I got caught, it could be big news, especially at that time. But I didn't feel that threatened to the point where I was scared for my life. Whereas, when I live in the city, and I live in New York, especially at the time, obviously New York is a little bit easier from a targeting standpoint overall, because it's easier to maybe target somebody when you don't see that many blacks. But when you go to New York, it's more so like this system is already in place to bring these people into jail and lock them up for very small, minor offenses of marijuana. So this has been happening for years, and that's why I don't really respect piggers at all. And from that standpoint, I just think that the only way that African Americans could get equal rights in the United States is when the clear ones release their hold from the police union, because the police union is obviously racist. Obviously,
how long have they had a control on them? Have the clear ones had a control on the police?
The clear ones created the police.
So why stop now? Why would they switch up now?
Because
there's camera phones and shit. Why the fuck would they?
We know what they're doing. We see them.
But we have known what they're doing.
Not this obvious. Now it's obvious. There was a police chief the other day that was getting upset that they were freeing innocent black people. And he was just like, yo, what do you mean you're letting them go? They washed my car. They clean my dishes. There's jobs here for them. You're talking about people that you're letting go from prison, and they're speaking to them like as if they're slaves. So, with that being said, we definitely hate Trump, like Eminem said. And, with that being said, I think that it starts there. We get that done, then and only then can we start, then we can start talking about reading books and shit like that, for black people to actually catch up and the right way to think. But until then, we need to start making sure we have the right judges in the legal system, and we don't have a bunch of black people getting arrested for dumb shit. A bunch of Caucasian people.
What's dumb shit? What do you mean dumb shit?
Dumb shit would be, any offense that they're getting a harsher penalty than their counterpart. Whatever a Caucasian, and if a black person and a white person commit a crime and it's the same crime, it just needs to be the same punishment. I don't care what dumb shit it is. We're not really talking about dumb shit.
But that's not how America. But that's not how America is. History of America. America is about the fucking capitalism. It's about the money. To me, if the black man has more lawyer money than what this fucking white man may have, the black man can get off scot-free while the white man also goes to jail for a long time. I believe, I know, actually, it got to do with the money you spend for court, for lawyers, for the business, the main business of United States, which is locking up many people.
Yeah, but why is the percentage so obviously lopsided to African Americans and Caucasians? If you look at marijuana offenses in the court system, and people that are being locked up in prison, I don't know what the numbers were. I don't really remember, but it was something crazy, dude. Like, over 40% of everybody locked up in prison were like minorities for marijuana. 40% of prison. Think about that. Just think about that for a second. Stop. Brace yourself. 40% of prisoners all around the United States are in there because of marijuana offenses. African Americans or minorities.
So 40%. So that means 60% are white?
No, 60% are in there just for other offenses. I'm talking about marijuana offenses. Weed. So 40% minorities.
That was my whole argument before. You're saying weed, and that's why I was saying the war on drugs, if they stopped weed as well.
Yeah, but you're also talking about...
We can be sitting here doing a sober show right now.